Hello and welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast with your host, metaphysician, Reiki master, and hypnotherapist, Christy Clemens Hoffman. Each week, we will discover teachings, tips, and tools to radiate your best life ever with practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate?
Hello and welcome back to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. Today we radiate hope, or should I say H.O.P.E, with Joshua Lewis, who is an intuitive, a medium, as well as a researcher into afterlife and afterlife communications. Thank you so much for joining me today, Josh. It's been crazy finding a time to do this. I thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Christy. It's an honor to be on. Thank you.
I'm so happy to be doing this because I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation. Now, you've written a book, Finding Hope in the Afterlife. But let's back up a little bit. So you are a medium, you are intuitive, you connect with people on the other side. Is that how you got started in this work in the first place, or how did you get started?
No, I have a very, very wild past. I have addiction and I got in a lot of trouble early on. I was a sensitive kid growing up, but I really overcompensated for my sensitivity and tried to kind of squash the sensitivity to become a tougher kid, and I overshot the mark by a lot, and I ended up getting in a lot of trouble, getting sent to prison for a couple of years. And when I got out, I kind of had nothing, other than just a belief in a higher power that saved my butt. I had nothing to start with. I got a job and started going to 12-step meetings and, got clean and sober and working with other guys that were kind of on that same trajectory, trying to kind of head them off and trying to let them know what's on the other side as far as prison and institutions and possibly death if they keep going, which is where I was headed. There's no question. I was facing a 20-year prison sentence. I was facing really life in prison. And I was given only 2.5 years, so I was kind of spared a life of misery and pain. And so I started over, and I started making some money I started some businesses and doing well, and I had the opportunity to kind of like semi-retire in a way after a few years after being out. Made enough money that I was able to do that, and that was a big jump from being completely broke. So, I bought a house and started a family and, had some other businesses. So I worked from home and it was great. And I started really diving more into my spirituality, the 12 steps, how they can help anybody and not just alcoholics and addicts and stuff. And, I started researching with like recorders and little spirit boxes. I saw some things on YouTube, and I'd go to cemeteries with my partner, Nikki, and we would go to abandoned buildings and things like that. And we would record stuff, and the recordings were our names or names of other people, or they would say, help me. And we're looking for the light and things like that. So when I hear that kind of stuff, I go, well, there's something there. There's definitely something going on. I don't know how to explain it, but there's no question that I'm experiencing, intelligent responses from another dimension, whether it's loved ones or demons or whatever. People have all these ideas of what they think it could be, but a lot of it was all positive. I mean, once in a while you get a get out or, I'm bad or something like that. But, a lot of times it was all positive stuff. And we ended up bringing a medium out with us. I wasn't too keen to mediums. I wasn't really, I didn't have any experience with them. So I really was kind of, putting them in the research group as far as I was going to research them too. And working with this woman after a couple months, and she was getting very accurate things. She said, hey, you and your partner are going to start getting messages yourself. And we both kind of balked at that. We kind of were like, that's crazy talk, And my partner, Nikki, one night, she started feeling different. She started feeling something. And I started asking her some questions about a friend of mine that passed. She didn't know. And she was accurate. And about a few weeks later, I started to get the same feeling. I started to pick up on things. They were right. And then I found this teacher. Her name is Deborah Lynn Katz, PhD. She's an intuitive, and she owns this school called the International School of Clairvoyance. And I started working with her. And she, would test me. She would do things like she would ask me to do like a cold reading, and she would say, here's a name, Manny. She'd say here, and she gave me a bunch of different names, but one of them, she'd say, here's a name, Manny. And she goes, I'm not going to tell you they're alive. I'm not going to tell you they're dead. I'm not going to tell you nothing. I just gave you the name, she said. And now she's like, I'm going to be quiet. And for 30 minutes, I want you to tell me everything you get on this person. And so, I remember I was doing this reading with her, and I'm like, I see this young kid. He's like 16. I see him in the desert. I see him riding like a four-wheeler. I said, I feel like he's like mixed background, like he's got some kind of, like he's a mixed culture, it's whatever his background is. I said, I see a sombrero. I see a guitar. I said, and I see him smoking a joint, this kid. Mm-hmm. And I say all these things to her. Right. And then at the end, she goes like, all right, that's enough. You've done 30 minutes of giving me information. I'm going to tell you who it is. She goes, it's my son, she says, and he's alive, of course. And she says, we live in the desert. He's 16. He rides his four-wheeler around in the desert. He's got a sombrero on his wall in his room. He sits on his bed. He plays the guitar. And he's a good kid. So I don't know if he's smoking weed yet, but I'm not too concerned about it, And so that's when it showed me. And I did a few of those, and, with no training yet, I could see that my raw ability was there because I was just picking up on these things. And so she showed me how to refine that, 3,000 paid readings later, 10 years later, I'm doing some pretty, cool work still, so yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah. So, but where did this interest even begin? I mean, you show up in the cemetery with this equipment, but had you always been interested in that type of thing?
Well, it's not really into the paranormal as much. I was really more interested in the spirituality of things, connecting with the higher power, whether that's guy in the sky with a beard and all that, or it's a source energy that runs everything and everywhere, whether it's Jesus or Buddha or Allah or Krishna, I was interested in that. I've always had an affinity and a connection to Christ, even though I'm not a religious person. Right. I was raised Catholic and stuff, but I mean, I don't consider myself to be a devout Catholic or anything like that. I'm a student of all religions of the world, and but Christ is my main guy. He's my go-to, so I remember when I was at the bottom of the depths of my addiction. I remember I was driving around at like 2 a.m. in my car. My parents wanted nothing to do with me. My friends wanted nothing to do with me. I had no friends really left. I was really just bottomed out, and I'd done a lot of damage to a lot of people with, my addiction and stuff. So a lot of bridges burned. And I pulled into this church because I wanted to talk to someone. I was talking to God. I was admitting my faults for like the first time. I was like being honest with myself about all the things that I had done and gone through. But I wanted to like really confess my sins in a way to another person. I wanted another person to talk to. I remember I pulled into the church. It was closed. The rectory where the priests live is closed. The church is closed. There's a grotto that they leave open. And it's got like some candles and a couple of kneelers and a statue of the Blessed Mother and the baby Jesus. And And so I go in there, I light a candle, I'm crying, and I kneel down, and out of nowhere, this little old lady comes into the grotto at 2 a.m. No car pulled up. There was no sound of anything. Just this lady walks in with this little dog, and she just she lights a candle and she kneels next to me. And already that seemed weird for me, but whatever. And then she put her hand on my shoulder. I mean, literally didn't say a word to me, but just put her hand on my shoulder and then said, "Would you like to confess your sins to me?"
Oh my gosh.
So that's a really powerful moment, it was a really powerful moment.
Yes.
So I started bawling even harder, I was like really just losing it. And she pulled out this little book, and she kind of like a priest, and I said, "Bless me, it's been this long since I've confessed, and I'd love to," and I started dumping my heart out to her. And then she says, "Well, here, say a couple Hail Marys and a couple Our Fathers, and kind of like a penance or whatever." And then she goes and takes this raggedy necklace off of her neck, which is a scapular. Scapulars are these, some people don't know, they're these little like fabric necklaces with like the Sacred Heart and the Blessed Mother on it. People get them for their first Holy Communions. So like normally when you're like in second grade, you would get like a scapular if you're a Catholic and you're going through the whole regiment of that whole process. And she says, "This was my father's, and he wore it every day of his life. And on his deathbed, he gave it to me, and I'm giving it to you." And I said, "I cannot take that. I cannot take that." She says, "No," she says, "God wants you to have it. He says he wants you to have it." And so I take it, and I put it on, and as quickly as she was there, she got up and she walked out. She bent the corner, not even bent the corner out of the grotto. And I sat there like a couple seconds, I don't know, and got up and looked, and she was gone. And I tell that story because
Wow.
I don't claim that she wasn't a real person. I think she was a real person. I think she was a real person that God spoke to and said, like we don't know why we go somewhere sometimes, but then we go there and someone needs our help, and you go, "Holy cow, I'm glad I was here." But you realize that you're being guided by something bigger than you. And so I would say that God guided her to another child of his, to a hurting child of his, to really give that manifested feeling of him being there. And so I really feel like that is what happened. And that was a big pivotal moment for me, because what it told me was, I'm not alone, that this power greater than me, whether of my lack of understanding, can hear me and loves me and is willing to kind of move mountains in a way to let me know that I have that kind of support. What's interesting about that story is that years later, when I did get my ability, I mean, many years later, almost 10 years later, 13 years later, when I got my ability, and I was working with my partner, Nikki, and I asked about that incident, and she started to get something intuitively, and she got this angel that came through, and the angel said, "That was me. I was the one that manifested myself to show you." And I said, "You got to forgive me." I said, I still am new to this, and I have a little bit of doubt, not about God, not about angels, not about the afterlife, but I have a little bit of doubt about you being that wasn't a real person, I said, "I even have the scapular still. How would that be the case if I still have the scapular?" And she said that scapular was sitting in the grotto by itself. It was there already. And she said it was a gift from God to you. So there's something interesting about that. Again, that is not something that can be proven,
Right.
but it is definitely a heck of a story. And what I do know is real is what really happened in that grotto. So regardless of whether it was a manifested angel or not, I do know the power in God. That's what gave me a really strong sense that I was being guided. Years later, I did a session. I walked into a friend's house, and they had a spirit board, like a Ouija board. And I asked them to play it. I'd never tried it. And we sat down, me and the kid's girlfriend. My friend sat there, not touching it. My girlfriend sat there at the time, not touching it. But me and his girlfriend played, and while they watched, and we, used it, and the planchette started moving on its own, and I mean, without our hands touching it. And the answers that we got to our questions were all accurate, and everything was very love-filled, very positive. So again, years later, after that grotto incident, now we're having a paranormal experience, a spiritual experience in the grotto. Now we're having a paranormal experience in this person's house with the spirit board. And so at that point, the spiritual experience made me really know that there was a God. Like, there really wasn't a question then. The paranormal experience with the Ouija board really showed me that there really was an afterlife. That regardless of whether I can explain all that just happened or not, that there really was intelligent, loving,
consciousness,
conscious, intelligent energy that was responding with us. And so that was like, okay, now there's no question that there's an afterlife. So that incident stayed with me when it came time to pick up those boxes and those recorders in the cemeteries. I was looking for that kind of experience again as the Ouija board, but knowing that my higher power was there with me, or that was guiding me. So it's a very interesting dichotomy there,
Right. And then, so after that experience in the cemetery, you really took that research, that work, and ran with it. And
I mean, I didn't plan on it. I certainly didn't plan on it. I was an entrepreneur. I had other businesses. I still have a couple of those businesses. So I really wasn't like, I mean, I was I still am involved in film at times, but I produced, working on, feature films and working in independent films in the film industry. And so that was like my main focus. The businesses were my main focus. This was a hobby. This was like a passion and a hobby. And all of a sudden I started to notice that my evidence was above average as far as what I was capturing. I was looking at other channels on YouTube and different people that were doing this for years, and not to knock them, I just was not seeing the level of Class A evidence that I was capturing myself. And I wasn't thinking of it like in an egotistical way. I was thinking, I have a knack for this, that I need to keep at it. And a couple of people, after posting some sessions on the channel, they were like, this is your purpose. This is like what you're meant to do. And I'm like, I don't know. You know what I mean? But eventually I really realized that I was able to help more people and make a bigger impact doing what I'm doing now than I am making films, than I am running my businesses. So this was like, okay, if I want to be of service to the big guy, I feel like this is where I fit in right now, and this is what I should be doing. And so that's really what's led, every day I meditate and I pray. I might miss a day once in a while with meditation, but it's very rare. But, and I always turn my will and life over to the care of God as I understand him. And I do that with a certain prayer. I do that with my meditation. I do that with my words. I do that with my actions. I get in a jam and I'm like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing here. Help me. I need your help right now. And so it's like, I always just get the next set of instructions right when I'm supposed to. If I just have faith and kind of do the next right thing, everything kind of falls in line. Even if it doesn't seem like it's falling in line to me, I there's a faith that I have in my higher power. So that's been what's going on, as far as how I run it.
Yeah. And like you said, this work helps people. So how I know it helps people, but how do you see it helping people?
Well, it started out as I was hearing a lot of help me's through the recorder, through the boxes. So there was a lot of help me. I need the light, looking for the light. So that's where hope came, as far as an acronym goes, for Helpers of Paranormal Entities. That's what HOPE stood for when I first started. And so I would help these spirits. And how would I help these spirits? Well, I would just pray for them. I mean, really, I'm not God. I don't claim to be anything like some chosen one or anything like that. I'm just another, cog in the wheel, is how I like to say it. But the fact is that I like to be an extension, or I ask to be an extension of him, of his light. And so if I do this out of compassion and love for my higher power, that when I pray for the light, for them, for the souls, when I advise them to ask for God, ask for Jesus, ask for whoever they're comfortable with, okay? Because it's not forcing, I'm not proselytizing on anybody that you have to follow a certain guru or deity. But when you ask for this help, you will get it. And so I would do that. And then I would get these responses through the boxes saying, hey, thank you. I see the light. I see him. I see this. I'm okay now. I feel better. Thank you. So you're getting responses, evidence that there was relief coming in. So that was huge. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So now I'm helping spirit, and I'm a part of helping spirit. Then I'm doing readings for people, and I'm doing readings where I'm not using equipment. I'm using just my intuitive ability, and I'm tuning in, and I'm getting these messages that are helping people with their faith, with connecting to their loved ones, with helping move past blocks in their life. Mm-hmm. So now I'm not just helping souls on the other side, I'm helping souls on this side in bodies. I'm helping live people.
Yeah.
So now hope started to turn into something else, where it wasn't just helpers of paranormal entities. Now it's helping other people evolve. And that's what the acronym stands for now for me. So, I do group sessions for people. I do for my patrons, where people can pay $10, $25 a month to join, and they can give me a name, 3 questions. And each month I ask for their loved ones to come through. And I've been doing that for like 6 years now. And I've had patrons that have been with me from the beginning when I first signed up, when I first started the page, the patron page. And every month they put the same name on. And every month these people on the other side come through. There's one woman that I bring up that, there's a lot I could actually go through, but there's one that I mention a lot, that her name is Deborah, and she has a husband that committed, or that took their own life. I got to rephrase that, because that's not what we say anymore. We say take their own life. That they took their own life. And so when I first started reaching out to him, his name is Benny. And he was looking for the light. He was looking for help. He wasn't in a great place on the other side. The way 6 years later, every month he comes through. And if you could go back, and I told her to do this, I said, go back and, you should do this as a project and write a book about it. I said, go back and find all the times in those sessions, and it's all logged, that you can go and find where he came through, and you will see the progression over 6 years of him getting better on the other side. That now he's like a spirit guide of hers. Now he's helping her, and he's in the light, and he feels good, and he jokes around, and he's, he says these funny things through the box and all this other stuff. And I get these funny things intuitively, and I tell her, and then he confirms through the box that he's saying those things. So you're seeing that the spiritual evolution of a soul is still continuing on the other side. It's not ending because the physical life ended. So that's continuing. So I think that's just absolutely amazing.
And, something that you said about he was talking through the box it points to another acronym that you have, the ITC. But I'm assuming that those are related. Yeah. Can you talk about the ITC and the box?
Right. So, okay. ITC stands for Instrumental Transcommunication. It's not something new. It's something that has been started by people such as Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, Frederick Jurgensen, who was a filmmaker like myself. He was recording additional audio for his films with a recorder on the windowsill. And when he went back to listen, he heard voices on there. And that got him involved in EVP, which is another acronym for electronic voice phenomenon. That's where you can just have a regular voice recorder and turn it on and ask a question and hear a whisper. And all the whisper is not you; it's someone that's intelligent answering you, and that's So he was doing that. Konstantin Radoval was a brilliant Latvian scientist who, just a brilliant mind, and he says that ITC is not a hobby for people that want to take it lightly. It's a serious field of study, and he was absolutely right. He famously came through a telephone after his death because he was working on ITC prior. He had some people that were willing to ask for him after his death, and he was able to come through. There's a guy named Frank Sumption. He, in the early 2000s, created what is known as the modern spirit box, which is a radio that will skip through radio stations at a fast rate. And what would happen is that it would skip these broadcasts and only allowing little bits of sound from the broadcast to come through. Right. People could get intelligent responses through those radio boxes, but they would also get these false positives sometimes because words could come through from the broadcast. So, there was definitely that. Mainstream science likes to try to debunk those things. What I did was go one step further. I looked at how was that happening? How were spirits responding through a radio? And you'd hear curse words sometimes, and that's not from the radio. You'd hear your name come through, and that's not from the radio. So you would get these responses that were definitive. You knew that without a doubt there was a direct response from someone. And so I realized that spirit wasn't taking a word from the broadcast and saving it and timing it, that they were taking the errant sound from the broadcast and forming their own responses. So what does that mean? Well, then I went one step further, and I took sound, human speech, and I started reversing it, slowing it down to about 70, 60%, and then chopping it up into small bits and then rearranging the pieces randomly. And what would happen is I would create this audio track, about 3, 4, 5 minutes long, of human speech, but was completely indiscernible. It was complete gibberish. There's not one word in the track. So you would hear a lot of ish, knock, ish, boy, ish, yeah, you get a lot of that gibberish. Mm-hmm. I then pipe that through my box with a little bit of echo. Echo creates longer sound waves. And so what would happen is that the spirit would take a segment of that gibberish with some echo in there, and they would speak using that sound, and it would form their own response. And so now what would happen is you would get a response that would be a sentence, a phrase that was very clear English, or a response to you, and you knew there's no way for that to come through. Before, there could be a question: is that a false positive from the radio? Is that Mm-hmm. But now, by doing it this way, if I ask a question and I open my noise gate, letting some sound come out, and there's just gibberish, then the spirit didn't use it. But if they did use it, we would get a clear yes, no, I'm here, I love you, I'm a response to what we're saying. So that's what we do.
Did you know that Radiate Wellness is more than just a podcast? That's right. We're also a comprehensive, holistic wellness practice. Find out about our services, practitioners, and upcoming events at radiatewellnesscommunity.com. While you're there, visit our podcast page to read more about our great guests and even donate to the podcast. If you like our podcast, you can help in other ways as well, like subscribe or follow us wherever you're listening right now. Tell a friend, a family member, or a coworker about the great content you find here. And if you wouldn't mind, please give us a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, or a positive review. Sounds like a small thing, but it really helps. You might like to know about our Facebook communities while we're at it. We have a free community, the Radiate Wellness community, on Facebook for news and great free content. Our subscribers group is Radiate U, as in the letter U, but also, well, you. There you'll find curated replays of past classes, guest interviews, and more. And now, back to our podcast and back to our guest.
And what you just downloaded is my free app.
Yeah.
I created a free app for it. Yeah. And I have a paid version that's for desktop and computer. Right. That's the
Spirit
Hope
box.
Spirit. Yep. The Hope Spirit box on iOS and Android. It's free. The phone version is free. I wanted everyone to try it on their own with no hang-ups. I didn't want anyone to have a dollar hang up or whatever. I wanted people to try it. We did work on it for a very long time, so we do have a paid version. That's an online-based version. You can go on and use it on your computer, which is a way more advanced version of what you've got on the phone there. It's got a lot more in the paid version, but these are audio. There's sound banks. There's like 20 sound banks on there, and there's young kid, young girl, young boy, middle-aged male, middle-aged woman, older male, older woman, and you got all these different, and there's no words. It's just the sound of a voice of just gibberish. And so if you want, you would look to speak, you want to speak to a loved one, a grandmother, let's say, you would need to intuitively connect to that person first. So the box, the gear, the radios, the recorders, they don't necessarily work unless you're tuning into your intuitive ability. They can work. It's not impossible. People don't realize that when they go out there and they record and they can get a response, that spirit is connecting with them briefly enough for that to work. So we are our own best piece of paranormal equipment. The app, the recorders, the boxes, those are all just add-ons to what we're doing. So if I take the app and I'm a skeptic and I'm like, I don't know, this is bull crap, and you kind of don't even pay attention and you just try to ask and you don't get anything and you go, oh, see, it doesn't work for me. That's the crappiest attitude to have. And that's probably you're not going to get results. But if you believe in something, in an afterlife, you've had some experience, you know that you have a connection to a loved one. You may not be a medium, fine, but if you have a connection to a loved one, a deceased parent, a spouse, whatever, you've got an intuitive connection to that person. So if you ask them and you focus and say, I want to ask for you, and you envision them in your mind and you think of a happy thought with them, a memory of them, and then you turn on your stuff, there's the chances of you getting something have gone up dramatically from just turning it on and asking kind of blindly. So, you would put a voice that matched your grandmother to the best of your ability. There's no guarantee you're going to get her. There's no,
Right.
But yeah, so then you do that. And so people have been sending me their recordings because you can do that. You can just send recordings directly from the app after you record them. And people would say, I cannot believe it. I've tried everything. I've never got a response or whatever, but check this out. And I hear it. And sure enough, it's a very direct reply to them. I love you. I'm here, and their lives are changed because of it, so it's been really amazing watching the development.
No kidding. I can't wait to use it. My dad passed last December and I connected with him, but I'd love to hear from him.
I'll show you a tip real quick so that anyone that's watching, and then of course, if you try it later, I'll just show you something.
Sure.
So when you open the app, you have you have the screen, you get a tutorial video, and you can get to my channel and book sessions and all kinds of things. So kind of a big ad screen on the main thing. But when you click on the bottom lifeline there, the waveline, you get the box. And so let's say we want to talk to our grandmother for a minute. So I'm going to scroll to older female. I'm going to pick older female voice 2. The reverb is on, so you want to just kind of leave it alone. You would hit record, hit allow. It says allow. So you're recording and you ask a question. And this is the big thing. People don't realize how long to keep this open. So you don't want to keep it going all the time. Mm-hmm. You want to just ask a question in quiet, or not in quiet, but like, without the box open. You say, hey, Grandma, can you use this? And after you ask the question, you want to open the gate, but then close it the second you open it.
Oh.
And a little bit of sound will come out, and then you want to stop your recording. And you can go to your recording tab right here and go back and listen to it. But just take a listen at how long just see how long I'm opening the gate. If people open it too long, too much sound comes out, and then they're like, I don't understand. And you still may not understand, but this is the best way to do it. So testing, 1, 2, 3. And so a very short response will come through. I don't know what was said. I'm not really focusing right now, so I'm just kind of like showing you the mechanics of it. But that's how long. The second you open it, you kind of want to close it. You don't want to keep it open for too long. I sometimes will do this. I'll even go.
Oh, so you take it all the way up and then close it halfway and then back up and then back down.
I'll do that once in a while, but really I'll just kind of open and then close it. But so if you do that, there's really no question. I mean, if you stick with it, have focus, belief, you will get some responses,
And you get the whole sentence in just that amount of time?
That was, a whole sentence could be, sometimes if I do the halfway and then open it and close it that way, that gives a little bit more time for them to use it. They could speak longer. It's not that it's just that we don't understand too long of responses. So you got to tell them, listen, 1, 2, 3 words at the most. Don't try to say a whole sentence because I'm going to probably cut off some of it. And that's why sometimes you get partial responses that kind of don't make sense. And you're like, well, wait a minute. I know there's no words in this track. So I know that this has got to be someone using it, because there's no way for just a partial intelligent response to come through. So there is still a mixed matching of when should they speak as opposed to how long I should open it. That's something you're going to have to kind of just feel out and work out with your spirit, that you're working with. But yes, you can get 2-3 words out of something that's short, because you want to go back and listen. Sometimes you have to slow it down a little bit to try to kind of, they can pack a whole thing in like a short amount of sound. So yeah.
Well, I can't wait to try it and see if I can hear from my dad. That would be wonderful. And of course, in your book, Finding Hope in the Afterlife, you break down like the protocol, how to test the equipment, how to use the equipment, how to open a session, you guide us.
Yeah. There's, the sessions are so multi-leveled as far as how the process goes. I talk about the 4 stages of doing a session. And the first stage is really your preparation of you.
Setting the intention,
setting the intention, being in a good space, doing a prayer, doing a meditation, doing a visualization exercise to bring your loved one in first. Don't just turn it on and ask them to come. Try to call them on your soul phone within you before you call them on the spirit phone, that you're holding. And then you want to make sure that your gear is prepped, that your batteries are good, your phone is charged, your camera's working, kind of like what you were doing prior to the interview. Make sure that you don't have any sound issues from outside or anywhere else, because Nothing sucks more than doing a session, feeling like it's a good one, going back and the camera didn't record sound properly, or you got some people outside with a blower blowing throughout your whole session. So there's things that you want to make sure on a technical level that are good first. Then you do the session. And when you do the session, you really just try to kind of, let go. And maybe not everything is perfect. Maybe there's some sound from your kids in the other room, or there's some other things going on. Maybe your attention is broken. Maybe the cat makes a sound and distracts you. All of those things can kind of bring you out of your spirit space. But it's your job just to kind of say, it's all good. I'm going to trust the process. I'm going to go the 20, 30 minutes, do the session, and I'm just going to throw caution in the wind, and we're going to go ahead and do this. And you do it the best you can. The fourth step, though, I would argue is probably one of, if not the most important step out of all of them. And again, all of them are important, so it's really not. But the fourth step is the review process. Only about 15 or 10% of what you hear in real time you will make out. A lot of what is said is going to be heard afterwards in the review. So it's important that you record each question and answer. It's important that you go back and you review your findings, because there's a lot of responses that you'll get that you won't get in real time. A lot of people like to do the sessions, like to listen for real time. They record for long periods, but then they never go back and listen. And I'm going to tell you that spirit is going to eventually say, well, we're not going to keep trying to talk to this person if they're not going to, we said a lot of good things to them and they didn't even want to go back and listen to that. So, the review process is a big deal. And that's what my new online program, the HSP Pro for online, for the desktop and computer, everything is built within. You can go and you can listen to your recordings. You can review them and slow them down. You can caption them with words, and then you can export the clips from the program to show people. So you no longer have to, upload it to an editing program and learn an editing program. It's all in-house for you.
Yeah.
And you've got 3 different spirit boxes, 3 different tools within that program to use. You got this HSP radio box, kind of like a traditional spirit box. You got the Pro, which is what is kind of like the phone app. And then you've got this one called the Origin, which is the first beta version that I created that runs off a separate program almost, but is still very effective. So you've got a couple different things to play around with. And you've got links within there that help you. Like there's a link to watch a grounding exercise that I take you through. People are like, how do I protect myself? How do I feel like I'm not opening myself up to negativity and all this other stuff? And I say, you're fine, but you should do something to help with your energy. And doing a grounding and running of energy is a really good thing. So there's a link in there you can click. Not in my phone app, but on the Pro version, that you can click and watch me guide you through a grounding. Then there's a visualization exercise to help you connect with your loved one, where I kind of use, it's almost like, hypnosis. It's just a guiding meditation that I say, close your eyes, listen to the sound of my voice, and I'm going to take you under almost into a place where you can really have a real expression, a real experience, with them, with the loved one,
Yeah. Very different than, say, Zach Bagans or something like that.
Yeah, that's another, that's all.
That's something different. Yeah, that's right.
That's a shame. But I mean, Zach has been doing this a long time, so I guess he deserves his respect in what he does, but he's built off of, fear. And so the problem with that is that, fear sells, evil sells, and, horror sells. Love is not so enticing. Love is not so sparkly. And it's just not, people don't gravitate to it as much. Bad news sells over good news. That's why the front page doesn't have good news on the front. It's normally some crappy story that's bad, right? So that's where Zach has made his bones, and that's where he's kind of, and but I mean, there's a lot of negativity, just like there's negativity on this side, there's negativity on the other side. It's not necessarily demons and evil and in possession as much. That's more for selling movies and shows and things like that. What you do get though on the other side are, assholes that didn't want to move on.
Right.
They were negative in life, and then they're negative on the other side because, free will isn't just taken from us on the other side. Who you are in this life is who you're going to be in the afterlife until you evolve and change. Kind of like what I talked about with that guy, Benny, that took his own life. I mean, 6 years ago, he wasn't in a great space. He wasn't in hell. Right. He wasn't in hell. So that's a big misconception. People think you take your own life, you're in hell. So religion talks about that's bullcrap. So I've got scientific evidence showing that that's not true. But he wasn't in a great mental space yet.
Exactly.
But connecting with his wife, connecting with me, prayers to him helped him evolve. So, you could still get people that are negative on the other side. And you've got idiots in abandoned buildings that hear a sound and scream and go, "Oh my God, it's evil," and so, if you've got some spirit that's hanging around that is not that positive, and he sees some blubbering idiot in another room that is acting scared and acting like everything's evil, why wouldn't that guy go, "I'm the devil"? And that's a great sound clip, right? And so this guy's going to record that and scream in the camera, "Oh," and then go back to his YouTube channel and he's going to post it. "I captured the devil on, camera. He speaks to me." And that's going to be a big clip and whatever. And it's just some guy named Fred that was a negative dude when he was alive. That's like, "I'm the devil," on the other side and pretending to be a demon. So there's a lot of that pretending to be evil crap that people don't realize. So I think that's what I've.
Yeah, many spirits just want to feel relevant, want to feel like they're making an effect. They want to feel like they're interacting. And right, exactly. That's why I like the work that you're doing, because it's really it's why spiritualists started their movement back in the 1800s, after the Civil War. It's why people seek out their loved ones on the other side. It's helpful, it's positive, it gives us comfort and hope. It truly does.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole, like a lot of people throw a lot of Leviticus and Ecclesiastes at me about, that old Jewish Levitical law that, in the Bible, the Old Testament, about how, soothsayers and necromancers and all these other types of things that, and I like to just throw at them, 1 Corinthians 12, verse 4 through 11, which is Paul. And Paul's talking about that these gifts that we have, these spiritual gifts that are to communicate with spirit, that are to see future events, there are things that we get that we are, and he says these are spiritual gifts all from the same spirit. They are from one spirit. They are from God. And we are to use these to help increase faith amongst other people that are not, that don't have that kind of faith. So there, Paul is telling you that we have the ability to communicate with the Father, to channel messages, to communicate with the ones on the other side. And there's a number of other gifts that he lists. And he says these are from one spirit. They're from God. And we are to use them for the good. And so they're right there. In the Bible is a verse, in the New Testament, telling you that what I'm doing is positive, not misusing it. Now, if I'm using it to spread fear and with like the negativity and the evil, that's not the right way to use those gifts. So,
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's manipulative and it's trying to manipulate reactions and elicit reactions
Right.
for the sake of doing that. No, absolutely. So what is the next steps? What's coming up in this type of research? It's been around for a while using these instruments to try to connect. But what's on the horizon? What's coming up?
Well, I mean, I'm going to probably, I've already started kind of dabbling with another book. I haven't dived into it yet. There's another book. It's called Conversations with Spirit, where I'm going to show the transcripts from some of the most powerful sessions that I've done with some well-known and unknown people. I ask for a lot of well-known people. I like to, people request that, and I love asking for them. It doesn't mean that I can say that I know 100% for sure that they are the person I'm reaching out to. But I've got a lot of validation from spirit, well-known and unknown people, that I was able to validate that it was them with a personal question, very personal information that they were able to give, factual, detailed information. I just asked for Patrick Swayze a couple of days ago, and I just posted that session on my channel. And it's really an amazing session. There's some very direct responses from who I would say I believe was him coming through. I've asked for some really amazing people, and they've come through. So I love to be able to share that. I just started a new channel. In addition to Hope Paranormal, I've now got Joshua Lewis Medium. It's a new channel that I just started, and I'm going to be showing all of my personal sessions with people that I do. No well-known people, just all very personal sessions that I do. And I've held some events. I held an event in St. Augustine, in New Orleans, in Savannah, Georgia. I just did one. So I've done all these really very old haunted cities, kind of spiritual cities. And for people to come and join me, and it's a 3-day event, so that's been cool. We just released the pro version to people, and then I mean, there's a talk of a TV show. There's talks of collaborating with some other people. So I'm just kind of going where spirit's leading me. I don't really know. I just know that I want these things to be there. The book is there for people to read and really kind of get an understanding of what I'm doing. The channel is there, and all the videos are there. People can join and be a part of group sessions, get private readings from me, box sessions, spirit photography sessions I do, because I've been able to capture some amazing faces that I've been able to validate of people's faces that are coming through water, through digital noise. So there's a lot of different aspects that I'm doing. So yeah, I don't really know what else. I mean, I'm going to try to have some more events and work on, like I said, that other book that I'm doing, and then, see where it goes,
That is so exciting. Yeah, I'm looking at your website now, hopeparanormal.com. And there are links to your YouTube and all of your social media.
All of it. Yeah. Everything hope related is hopeparanormal.com. Everything hope related is there.
Oh, that's awesome. And then we can find your book there as well?
I mean, it's listed there. Yeah, there's a link to Amazon. It's on Amazon. I'm not the publisher. So, I mean, you can get it on Amazon, Kindle, paperback. Yeah, it's there. What's cool about the book is that the first few chapters are my story, and I talk about how wild the story is. But then I go into really the research, and I cite my references and sources as far as to back up what I'm saying. There's a lot of footnotes in the book that when you see an asterisk or a number and you go down and you see a footnote, and sometimes it's a fact showing where I got the information from. Sometimes it's a link to a video playlist. Now on my channel, Hope Paranormal, there's a playlist called the Book Playlist. And there's like over 20 videos that coincide with the book. So as you're reading a story in the book, you might see a footnote and you go down and it says, see video number 10. And you go to my playlist on my channel and you watch that video, and it corresponds with the story that I just told you. So it's like a real experience, and there's pictures in there too. I have some really cool pictures of like spirit orbs that are showing up right in my session, that you can see these orbs that are popping up, so some really cool things going on.
Which you told me before we started recording about you've got a white patch.
Yeah.
If you're listening on, or if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see it. But if you're listening to the audio version, you've got one of these white patches.
Right in the middle of my forehead, right above my, it's like right on the front, and it's right in the middle. And it's weird because I have a little bit of gray, but not much, but it's this white patch has been there for a while. And I remember sitting in, so when I record my sessions, I was telling you earlier that I could see these balls of light, these orbs that I believe are the souls coming in and out of the sessions. And a lot of them have come into that white patch or leave my head from that white patch, and they'll just shoot straight up out of the white patch. And it's like the spirit highway, I call them. And it's like, it's just crazy. And so I was getting my hair cut once, and the woman cutting my hair, she says, did you have a near-death experience? Ooh. And I said, no. I mean, I probably almost died many times being addicted to drugs, but I said, I didn't like flatline and they have to bring me back. I don't believe I ever had that happen as far as I know. And I said, how come? Why are you asking that? And she said, she goes, you have this white patch in your hair. And she said, and I've ever since I've been cutting hair, I see people come in, and sometimes they'll have one here. Sometimes someone will have it there, or they'll have it here, in a weird white patch. And I always ask people, do you did you always have that? And a lot of people say, no, I didn't always have that. It showed up one day. And she started asking, well, what do you think could be the reason? And so a lot of these people shared with her that they had a near-death experience, and then that this white patch showed up after that. And I said, well, what's interesting about that? I said, I haven't had a near-death experience, but when I do, I said, I'm in afterlife research, I'm a medium. And she's like, oh my God, the barber, she's like, what? Wow. And I showed her this clip from on TikTok. I have a TikTok, and I share a lot of my 1-minute clips on there. And I showed her the clip of the orb leaving my head, and she's like, "Oh my God, that is amazing! I have to show a number of people this that I talked to about their white patch. I want to show them this, And I said, right. Yeah. And so she did, and so I'm always curious about if people have now, if they've got a white patch, if it's been because of a near-death experience or what. But I think it's got to do with something spiritual because of it's almost like they're staining it with their light it's like they're bleaching that patch of hair when they go in and out, Right.
Which would be true of the near-death experience, the soul perhaps coming in and out of the body, which is interesting. It's not even on the crown chakra in particular.
It's more the third eye.
Yeah, kind of, but not really. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the third eye is right here.
Yeah.
It's pineal gland it's right there. Close. So it's close, but it's like, the crown would be right in the middle. Mm-hmm. It would be like going in and out of the crown. But when you see a couple of these clips, you could see them. It's like the ball of light will leave right here, not up here. It's leaving right there.
Interesting.
And it's just a very crazy phenomenon,
Yeah, that is so cool. Well, this has been really, really interesting. Is there anything that we haven't talked about or haven't asked that you think is important before we go?
No. I mean, if anyone's interested in using the app for free, download it on iOS or Android, Hope Spirit Box. And then if they want to try the pro version, it's $5 a month, and you cancel any time. I mean, it's an online program. It's not downloadable. So, it's a really involved program, but, anyone could check it out. And I would say it would give you one of the best opportunities that you'd have in reaching a loved one,
Fantastic. And we'll put all of the links in the show notes. Thank you so much, Josh, for joining me today, because this has been really interesting.
Thank you. It's been really an honor and a lot of fun talking to you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Radiate Wellness is an international community of holistic and alternative healers dedicated to helping you create spiritual, energetic, and physical well-being. To learn more about our practitioners, services, classes, and events, or to schedule an appointment, visit us at radiatewellnesscommunity.com.